Hey guys, so I was watching my old DVD and Blu-ray videos and I realized there's a statement I made there that I've never done in the history of this channel, which is to talk about the show Pirate Master, which is one of those lesser known reality shows that I've seen, so might as well do that now. So normally when I talk about lesser known reality shows, I tell you guys the premise of it, but for this show, it's actually much easier to just watch the first episode of it and then you'll get almost everything like that. Because if I were to tell you it, I'd make it sound way more complex than it actually is. So, link is down below. And for those of you who have seen the show, I'll also provide a link to an interview that one of the contestants, Azimuth, did with the crew of Rob Sesternino. He provided a lot of information about the show, which changed my thoughts on it significantly, right? So, what were my thoughts on the show? For a one-off, I felt like this was a very interesting idea, you know. Basically, it was Survivor on the Sea with a Big Brother style of elimination. Just you replace HOH with a captain, and you replace nominees with a black spot, but you have the option of rebelling against the head of household, which I thought was actually a very clever twist, and gives a whole new meaning to your choices come back to haunt you, you know? Yeah. And then there was also the idea of hiding the treasure, which I thought was actually kind of clever. And how did I feel about like the people on the show? At first I was a little confused, you know, not really getting the best read on people, but I've actually seen the show more than once, so I felt like actually we did pretty good. We had people of all kinds of different personalities that tried their best out there. There were a couple of people just like, what is up with you, you know? And then there were nice moments where things changed, although as the interview with Rob Sesternino crew revealed, there was a lot of things that didn't necessarily make the air, and there was a lot of thinking that we couldn't necessarily observe, which was a little bit of a bummer. Now, I'm not advocating, like with a couple of seasons of Survivor, we needed, like, double length episodes, but this was before, you know, we had as much social media stuff and the ability to do as many, like, exit interviews with people, so if we had had that, then we'd have every bit of knowledge that we probably would have desired for this show. So it's a bummer not to have that, because given how this show ended up getting like canceled mid-run and, you know, only had the one season, it's kind of faded back, which I find a bit of a bummer, because I felt like this show had potential, especially since the host of the show, what's his name, like Cameron, he actually did pretty good. If you were to compare him to Jeff and Borneo, I'd take Cameron any day. He seemed to have a good way of getting the right responses out of contestants. Very comfortable, even though there were a couple of wooden moments at the start of the season, but he got real comfortable real quick, so yeah, he did good. And then, like, as the season started winding down, we got to see better politics of the game, and then we got a winner who I felt like we had a good amount of time with. It definitely deserved it, even though I was kind of a bit bummed due to the stories of a couple of the other people that made it pretty far on the show, but it's not like this person came out of nowhere, okay? So, at least we have that to look forward to. Alright, so that's all my general thoughts on the show. Now to talk about a couple of the things that Azimuth revealed in his Rob Sesternino interview. Gotta change my grip here. So after I learned what behind-the-scenes info that he put in there, I gotta admit the show does not seem as good now, because, well, I did find the idea of having, you know, 3 black-spotted people and then having to not only get the unanimous opinion of the crew, but have both officers approve. You know, that just doesn't really suit well with me, especially since Azimuth revealed that the main reason they got rid of the officers and went down to 2 was not so much because they were running out of contestants, it was because they knew that Azimuth was just going to keep winning everything, because he'd gotten rid of virtually everyone who was a threat to him, minus possibly Louis and arguably Nessa. So, yeah. This is a kind of a bit of an example of production kind of getting their hands dirty. Now, they pass it off in a way that would work, but had this been today, I don't think they would have done that. Not just because reality TV producers are more experienced, but because with social media, people can blab a lot more, and yeah, so today I don't think they would have done that. My personal opinion is you should have just done two black-spotted people from the get-go, and then either have just one officer for a while, or just do no officers from the get-go. But here's the problem: if you don't have any officers, how are you going to have the treasure be divided? Because the idea of doing 50% for the captain, 12.5% for each of the officers, and then the remaining 25% goes to the remaining members of the crew, you know, that makes the Pirates Code idea very compelling and ominous in people's minds. But then, like, having, if you were to say, like, the captain gets all of the treasure from the get-go, that really wouldn't work, because then you'd have mutinies all the time. And then if you have the captain gets 50, whereas the crew gets 50, that kind of works, but makes the idea of it less ominous. And even then, what's to say that the captain is just going to be like, I'm keeping the lion's share of this, but I'm giving, technically, more of it to you guys, meaning that it's like 40 for the captain and then 60 divided with the rest of the contestants, because after the first few eliminations, suddenly there'd be barely any difference, you know? So, yeah. Given how production kind of made that twist a lot more malleable, it just loses a lot of impact, which I found to be a bit of a bummer. And then given how, actually, as it turned out, it wasn't so much that Jodan was, kind of making the contestants starve, but they were given, like, a limited amount of food from the get-go, that didn't suit well with me, because this isn't like Survivor, you know, where they're constantly fending for themselves, because, as Azimuth revealed, there was actually a whole group of people that the cameras didn't show that manned the ship for a good amount of the time. So, you know, why would you underfeed the contestants when this show is a lot more physically demanding? Even though you can argue that Survivor is physically demanding, but Survivor at least has the on and off bit, whereas for Pirate Master, even though Azimuth seems to reveal that they didn't, like, do it in 2 weeks, it seemed like they did it in 3 weeks, it's still a shorter amount of time, you know, and even though there's an on and off cycle, it happens a lot quicker, both by the structure of the show and then how long. So just, now that I know that, I think even less of production because of that. And then here's something that I noticed during my re-watches of the show. I actually added up all the amounts of the treasures, including the final treasure, which was, you know, 500,000. But if you add up all the values of the treasure that were actually dug up, you have exactly 500,000. So, you know, when they have the smugglers say, oh yeah, I stole the treasure, ha 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 ha. Actually, no. They just did that as a gag. There was still $1 million that was won this season. This is simple math, people. What they really should have done was have that fourth expedition only be the Royal Pardon, and then you could argue that the smuggler got $5 grand. That's what they totally should have done, yeah. So there's that little bit of info. And, the final free elimination, I'm not the hugest fan of that, but the problem is there's no good way of doing it, because the eliminations 1 through 13, that works just fine, and then the final 2, you know, first person to the treasure gets the treasure. That's a perfectly valid thing, but the process of going 3 to 2, that's pretty tough. Now, I'm fine with the fact that they didn't have, a a division of crews in that situation, because since they did their best to keep the ratio of genders even, that would have technically meant that one person would have ended up on one of the crews by default, and as such wouldn't get the opportunity to become captain. And that's not fair, really. Because on the regular episodes, you at least have a 50-50 shot of technically being captain, so yeah, I don't know. Since the show didn't get renewed and not too many people seem to talk about it, even though if you go to Survivor's Wikipedia page and go down to the See Also section, it's listed there. I found this quite by accident and realized, oh yeah, I saw one episode of this a while ago. Yeah, I'm going to totally try and find it. Yeah. So, I'm glad I did that. But, yeah, that didn't totally go well with me. And, now that I'm pretty far into the video, I'll discuss a couple of spoilers and basically tell you what I meant by when I said that I was a little bothered by the stories that a couple of other contestants have been through. You know how Jeff states that you pretty much always root for the underdogs? Well, this was one case where I kind of did want the underdog to win because I was a tiny bit more for Krista actually pulled it off than a Krista versus Ben, because she did have a bit of a better storyline than Ben, who just happened to be in the, who you can argue was in everyone's good graces by pretty good chance of the naturally being athletic. She started off as nobody, but then became something, and there are times when you've got the emergence person versus somebody who has been a tiny bit more obvious. Well, I go for the person who's more obvious, and then there's times I go for the person who was emerging. Well, that's how I felt here, but also at the same time, I do kind of feel sorry for Jay, because let's face it, you did have like the bitter jury syndrome, but you had the bitter jury syndrome one round before the end, so, yeah, it goes to show. Final three. Tough. And I wonder if what Asma said was true, that actually a lot of people were in favor of Jay back in the day. That'd be real interesting to find out. Too bad there's no easy way to do it, yeah. Because I'm pretty darn sure that they actually canceled the show the episode Asma finally was booted. Doesn't really matter when they canceled it, yeah. Okay, well, I think I've dragged this on long enough. I've described to you guys my thoughts about this show, and got this out of the way. Hope you enjoyed it.